Yes, I'm able to record now. Thanks, Karen.
No problem.
All right, so now that I'm back in church, all will bow down. Right. Okay. So everybody on the
Yes, we are.
8 of you across, you know. So we lost some people in the transition. All right, we need to talk about this idea of planning for a CSO of the future. I mean, we have been very proactive, you know, we're going through the motions, getting the thing organized. I mean, hoping to predict what will be some of the needs of the society, right? What we have going for us is the fact that we know that there are these needs that were literally diagnosed in 2018. We started the program in 2020. By 2022, you guys out. So you know that that is the niche, one of the niche areas you have. But what are some of the other things you figure will become more important for CSOs? Just in terms of using your own foresighting and your own imagination. What will be some of the things that you think will be very crucial? And I'll give you a big hint. A lot of them will have to do with climate change.
Environment.
And sustainable, right? And sustainable community development practice. Sustainability will be at the top of the list in terms of sustainable ecosystems, sustainable livelihoods, and so on and so on. So at every turn, we're going to have to make sure we superimpose climate change and safety. Remember, I kept insisting on safety even before this, you know, before COVID got to where it's at now. We recognize that you can't be an effective CSO and not have safety as a top priority with anything that you're going to recommend. Any practice, any sustainable community development practice must be rooted in concern for people. And what comes under concern for people? Safety, livelihoods. Yeah? Hello? Am I alone?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I agree.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember, we're using this forum for the immediate feedback. So we don't have to type, we just have to say yes or no, or I don't understand, or let's start over. I don't understand a thing you say for the day. Which is, as I keep telling you, I'm not thin-skinned there, so please don't let us go on if you're not sure that you understood what we talked about before, right?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was telling you about if you're going to be involved in the CSO sector, in the civil society sector, in development generally, and if you're going to claim any kind of expertise in sustainable community development practice, remember all of those words, sustainability. You have to know what that means in real terms. Community, you have to be able to identify a community, whether your community is just going to be a geographical community, interest community, or a national community, or a regional community. Sustainable community development. What does development really mean? And development is all about people. And then practice has to do with the mechanisms and the things that you put in place to make sure that you deliver on the first three promises of sustainability, community, and development. Am I clear, or is that?
Yes.
That is precise.
Too philosophical. Okay, right. Because as I keep telling you, everything we do, and I insist on that, everything we do must be grounded in the reality of what is going on right now, and with a view to being effective in the future as well. So in the absence of vision, the people perish. Right? So we must have that ability to see at least a little bit into the future, right? I was hoping that we would have had class sessions where I could discuss foresighting with you a little bit.
So Steve, I want to ask a question, eh?
Go ahead.
Yes, you were talking about the different types of community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the largest route of reach, based on what you said, was regional. So in light of what's happening now, right? If we were to, create this CSO to help the world in this pandemic situation right now, can we say we have a worldwide society CSO?
I don't want to pour cold water on it, but I'm just saying that it's going to take a lot of doing.
I know.
And I'd prefer if we would establish regionally first before we bid that off.
Okay. I just want to know if it was practical.
It would be practical if we had more of a base, of a foundation to stand on. As it is now, we're kind of confident about what impact we can have in Grenada.
No, I'm not saying that we can do that now. I mean, if we can say that or do that, like, I'm thinking about in the future.
Yeah.
Not that we're doing that now with our CSO.
Right, but yeah, of course you could have it in the back of your mind. You could even have it in your constitution that, part of your vision is to expand,
right,
to have regional and international impact. Fine.
Impacts.
Nothing wrong
Okay.
with
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
All right. In terms of our vision,
thanks.
Your hat is always going to be on a thing there where you have to be tiptoeing to reach it all the time. Which is good. I mean, you want that.
Yeah.
Last thing I wanted is to be static. Yeah?
Yep. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so I was asking you, has anybody heard the term foresighting? Foresighting. Foresighting. So anybody heard of the term?
Don't believe so.
You did?
No,
I'm not sure. I probably can try to figure out what it means based on,
No, if you have to figure out what it means you have.
No, well, then I haven't heard it.
Right, okay. So it's something you have to be trained, you have to be trained in. It is a skill, if you like. It's a skill that is used in strategic planning sessions and so that one of the
something that I've heard about before.
Okay, but you've never been to a session or interacted with people who have been trained in it?
No.
Formally trained in it. Okay. All right. So let me just give you guys an idea where I'm heading with this. Invariably, your CSO is going to have some sort of strategic planning session or sessions when you get going and you're operating. Okay? And one of the techniques in strategic planning or strategic thinking has to do with foresighting. So I'll give you a little example of what foresighting is about. Most times, I shouldn't say most times, but traditionally, when people start thinking about the future, they tend to do a lot of forecasting. Are you hearing me clearly? Because this is conceptual. You need to be sure that you're following me.
Yes, I'm hearing you.
I'm hearing you clearly. I'm following.
I know you're hearing me, but that was what I specifically asked if you're following.
I'm listening.
Because it is quite easy to hear me, but I mean, you have to be sure you're following. All right. So when people talk about making predictions about the future, they're usually based on forecasting. What do I mean by that? Forecasting is about looking at trends, right? If you're going to forecast, let's say, sales in your business, right? What you do is you probably look at figures for last year, year before, maybe the year before that, and then see if you could plot a graph.
Hello?
Hello, you hear me?
Yeah.
Kenya's
I'm
mic
sorry.
is on.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So I was saying that you would probably have sales receipts for the last year, the year before, maybe going back 4 years, right? And normally in forecasting, what you would do is you would plot those sales figures and see where the trend is heading and base your forecast on that.
Okay.
Let me start over.
Mm-hmm.
Who was asking it? Glenda?
No, that's what I was saying. That's actually I probably could have attempted it because I did management, accounting, and I also did sales and marketing for the years. And that's what I was saying. It's a lot of years since I did some training. So that's what I was thinking, like planning ahead, looking at.
But what I'm about to say is that
It's not related.
that is not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm talking about is something that is almost
Not related.
opposite of what
Yes,
normal
that's right.
forecasting would be. So as I'm saying,
Good.
forecasting would have been plotting based on historical data. Is everybody
Yes.
right? So if you had a business place that was making on average $20 a month per year in last year, and this year you're averaging about 22. So when you do forecasting, you would start thinking, okay, if you want to continue that trend, then you probably expect to make $24 a month. Is everybody with me still?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, we hear.
Yeah, we here still.
That's what forecasting is about. And forecasting is really attempting to make a prediction about the future based on what happened in the past. That's a crucial point
That's
here.
what
You need to get that. You need to get
Mhm.
that forecasting is about looking into the future based on what happened in the past. Does everybody agree with that? And that's how people,
Yes.
right? That's how you do
Yes.
predictions, right? If you're independent of measuring equipment, let's say, if you want to forecast what average rainfall would be for next year, you would have to go and look at what it was like 2 years ago, a year ago, etc. Right? So that is the basis of forecasting. So the crucial thing you have to remember is that forecasting is based on a look back. So it's almost as if it's backcasting, right? Because you're looking back to decide where you're going to go in the future, right? Now, foresighting is radically different. In foresighting, what you do is you picture yourself. Let's pick a year. If you're doing forecasting for 2025, you would base it on what happened in 2017, 2018, 2019, now in 2020, and base your forecast on that. In foresighting, what you're doing is you're imagining yourself in 2025 already, right? Ask yourself, what would you want that future to look like? Follow me? So when you're doing forecasting, you're going big. It was 2020, it was $22, it was $23, it was $24, $25. So you're forecasting based on that, you will say, okay, $26. By the time you get to 2025, you should be making $26 a month. Okay. In foresighting, what you do is you say, okay, I'm in 2025. What do I really want to make in 2025? And you may come up with a figure, and I'll tell you how you get those figures. You may decide, okay, I prefer to make $30 a month in 2025. With foresighting, what you do now is you say, okay, you picture yourself in 2025, making $26, making $30, and ask yourself, what do I have to do in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 to be able to end up in 2025 with the figure that I have in mind? So you see what you're doing now is you're foresighting. In other words, you're using foresight to tell you where you want to be in the future. And you're not dependent on the past for that. You're not dependent on your past history for that. What you're dependent on is the interval now between now and that time to see what you have to do differently.
Yep.
Right? So,
Steve, I'm not sure if I lose you there for a bit.
What's that?
So forecasting goes based on the information you had from before.
Right.
And foresighting is like you do not need that information from before.
No, it's not that you do not need, as I said, it's a skill. It's not as if it's not dreaming, eh?
Mm.
Foresighting is not dreaming. There are realistic ways of coming up with what you want 2025 to look like, right? And it may not bear any resemblance. In other words, suppose you had a business that was failing in 2018, failing in 2019, failing in 2020, right? In other words, your trend was going down. But you have decided that, look now, I want this business to be able to make X dollars on the profit side in 2025. With foresighting, what you do is you'll say, okay, it's 2025. I'm making this amount of money that I want to make. What would I have had to do between now, 2020, and then to get at that? So you see, it involves a radical shift in how you think about the future. Because what you're doing now is you're giving yourself the leeway to prepare for 2025, independent of what 2018 was like and what 2019 was like and what 2020 is like. That's why I say it's not dreaming.
Okay.
Eh? It's not as if you just
Get it now.
you follow? In traditional
Yes.
forecasting, what you do in forecasting, you limit yourself to your history. Because you couldn't come up with a forecast that says you're going to make $30 if for the last 4 years you was making $10, $9, $8, and the trend was going down. We could just get up one morning, braps, and say, you know what I forecast for 2023? $18 or $25. There'll be no historical data for you to base that forecast on. Because forecast is about looking at what has happened in the past and then making some sort of projection into the future. With foresighting, you're imagining yourself in the future already. Clearly, this is not something that can be done you cannot learn that in 5 minutes like I am trying to do that. But I'm just insight
Sorry for laughing.
No, I'm giving you insight into how it's done. Right? Because I was trained by people out in New Zealand, a corporation called Next Corporation, right? We are actually trained in foresighting. And I was lucky enough to lead all of Trinidad and Tobago in biotechnology foresighting. So in other words, the government asked me to be in charge of the foresighting section in biotechnology. In other words, we were supposed to, and this was a long while ago, obviously, right? It was somewhere around 2004. And we were being asked to project what 2015 would look like in biotechnology, right? So clearly you couldn't just ask any and everybody, right? You're talking about people who are experts in that particular field, and you're challenging them now to say, okay, if you want to have X in 2015, what do we have to do in 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 8, 9, 10, and go on. And we eventually, we actually did a Caribbean-wide roadmap. I facilitated this association in Jamaica that did a Caribbean-wide roadmap for biotechnology that was hosted by the SRC, the Scientific Research Council in Jamaica. So as I'm rushing through that, but I just want you to be aware that this thing exists and that progressive CSOs of the future will not be using forecasting. I could almost put my head on a block and say that. And they'll be using more foresighting. And some of the more enlightened corporations and so, they do a lot of foresighting as opposed to forecasting. Because what forecasting does is it ties you to your past. Because you're saying that you can only move based on what happened in your past. With foresighting, saying you actually design the future that you want and then have to make hard decisions to get there.
Yes, so Steve, as I was saying, I did not know the term, but I think we were practicing that in our women's group. Because what we had to do, you can correct me, what we had to do was do a letter to ourselves in the future, telling ourselves.
Who conducted it?
Pardon?
Who conducted the session?
Well, she's the facilitator. She lives in Canada. She's our pastor's wife.
Okay, all right.
And what we were supposed to do is we choose a one word, right, for the year. So let's say mine is purpose, right? I'm sure you probably see that at the bottom of my email, purpose driven, right? So mine for this year is purpose. So I would put in there what I want to see happen to myself by the end of the year. And not only that, I went ahead and even wrote myself a letter that I supposed to read in December, saying to myself, well, where I would have been, what I accomplished so far, and speaking to myself, can you see back then what I was doing, how difficult it was, but then I made it so far. But because in my mind, I know what I want to achieve. So because of what I want to achieve, I would have written it as that's my goal. That's what I would have achieved by that period of time. And at the end of the year, that's where I would have been.
All right. So do you have something done? What you're going to do different in January,
Yes,
February,
yes,
March, April? Right. Yeah. Well, then that's an example.
yes, yes. That is what. Yeah. So every month,
But you would have had to. Let's say you're doing it in December 2019 for December 2020.
2020.
December
Yes.
2019, you would have had to say, okay, by December 2020, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z.
Right, and then say what
And
I will do
what
to
would I
get
have
there,
to do
steps I would take to get there.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the first item.
Okay. Great.
But
Thanks.
Now moving away from the same topic. Not a CSO, but in terms of government. I follow China Belt and Road Initiative a lot.
Oh yes. I know exactly where you're heading.
And I think this is
that's the Silk Route project.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is something that would really lead to the same foresighting and full.
Because you see, those are the people who understand. I shouldn't say understand. I don't understand China, but people who have a little inkling as to how China operates. China's planning cycles is not in 10 years and 15 years. They're planning 50 and 100 years.
Yeah, very much.
They don't plan, when a strategic plan by a Chinese company is not for what's going to happen in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years. They think intergenerational. So this person is already planning for what his grandchildren will be doing. Right?
Very much.
And my very good friend, mentor and past supervisor, used to be Barbados ambassador to China back in between 2014 and 2018. And between 2013 and 2017, sorry. And he was China's Barbados ambassador based in China in Beijing. And I mean, every conversation we have had about China and how they operate, he has drilled that home to me. That they are planning cycles. They don't plan in 5-year increments like we do here in the Caribbean, because most governments plan for the next election, right?
The political system, yeah.
Yeah, right. But remember, they're not limited by this political system, so they have to worry about elections every 5 years. Same party, the same party could be in power. They know that already, right? So they already have to work up themselves about that. But when they're thinking, that is the kind of planning they do. 400, and I'm saying that an effective CSO in our time that is preparing for coming times will have of necessity to have that kind of planning cycle. So you see how, even though we're talking about building a CSO and you're talking about community development practice, and there are a number of skills, adjunct skills that you have to learn if you're going to be effective. Now, as I say, I've been extremely lucky. When I was on the board of WINFA, as the only non-Windward Islander on the board of WINFA, WINFA is the Windward Islands Farmers Association, National Farmers Association. So that's where I first met people like Elliot Bishop and so, right? Because he was in charge of the cane farmers here. Wendell was in charge of beekeepers. So all the national farmers associations were affiliated to this Windward Islands Association. And I was asked to be on their board for a number of years, more than a decade. But one of the most important things I think I ever did with them was I facilitated the strategic planning workshop they had back in 1999 or 2000, when we actually took the decision to go with fair trade route. And that involved a fair amount of foresighting, and to the credits of Renwick Rose and these guys, they actually saw that the future of banana for that period was along the fair trade route. And they effectively went ahead. First, they linked up with Max Havila and some of the other chains, and then they eventually got on to fair trade. And that was a boom period for banana farming in the region. That is when they were, pulling down millions of dollars in social premium and so on. For the first time, farmers in Dominica were able to buy books for the library. Farmers had an insurance plan going. They actually bought a 40, 50 acre estate in St. Vincent, a place called Montague. And we bought Montague with money from the social premium, which is a sort of top up that you get when you're a fair trade farmer. And that social premium is meant to be used for the entire organization. So you had all of these farmers at the time the membership went for about 3,000 plus. All of them agreeing to buy this farm and this factory in St. Vincent. So you had barefoot farmers in Dominica, in the Carib territory, or the Kalinago territory, agreeing to buy this farm and factory in Montague, in St. Vincent, right? And they owned it. They owned it and ran it, right? I was the first chairman of the board of that company, and I made it a point to do a number of things. One, to never sign any document that had to do with farmers' money. So although I was the chairman, the vice president of the board, who was a farmer from St. Vincent, called Philemon Allen, all the signatures and so any money transactions, I had no dealing with any money transactions at all, right? I was just a sort of figurehead president overseeing and like doing the overall auditing, right? But I never signed a dollar out of there, out of that whole operation. And that is where I first met the current Minister of Agriculture in St. Vincent, a guy called Saboto Caesar. He was the lawyer that did all the transactions and things for free at the time, because he was educated on a banana scholarship, and he understood going back there. So I'm just telling you all that to show that that this foresighting thing is not pie in the sky stuff. It's not wishful thinking. As Glenda explained, you don't just write a letter yourself for December 2020 and wait. It means you have to be doing something different in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, going all the way down to be able to accomplish that. So that, in a nutshell, is just you just got $5,000 US out of training out of me in a few minutes.
But so that's a big task you set on them, man, because that is strategic foresighting you're doing them, man. Big thing.
Yeah, but I'm saying that, but any CSO with its salt going to have to do that. That's the point I'm making, right? And if we talk, remember we talking about CSOs of the future. I do have classes by guess. I took you down this road so that we could start talking about the future, right? And if you're talking about the future, how are you going to be operating in the future? I suspect it's going to be based on foresight, and it won't be based on forecast.
Right.
Right. So
But sir, I got to ask you a question offline. I would have to ask you a question about the kind of food you eat, and the time you go to bed, because this brain has to be overactively working.
No. I don't have nothing to do with it. It's not about being bright. I think you all make a basic mistake when you think about me. You all think I'm bright. I'm just old enough. I've just been around for a long time. And even the dullest person, if you expose them long enough, they will eventually do something useful. So it's just that I've had enough time to do plenty things useful. That's all. So it had nothing to do with bright. I don't consider myself bright. I ain't bright. And if you talk to most of my friends don't think I'm bright. We'll see if you talk to my wife. She don't think I'm bright at all. But that's a longer story. Anyhow, so I'm saying that every CSO in the future is going to, I shouldn't say is going to, may well be looking at foresighting. And if we're going to be putting our graduates in sustainable community development practice, I think it's my responsibility to at least start preparing you for that. preparing you for the kind of skills that you would need to really be someone skilled in sustainable community development practice. Questions, comments?
All clear?
Karen's floor is open.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
excited.
I'm precise. I understand everything that you're saying, and I think it's clear, you know. But I really think it's a skill that I would want to learn individually rather than as a CSO for safe course, but it's a skill that I would want to learn personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure who's conducting it. These guys from this next corporation there were two guys, two New Zealanders who came down there. And one of the funny things about dealing with them is that, you know, it was almost as if they were natural foresighters because as they used to joke, you know, New Zealand is 14 hours ahead of us. And they were like 14 years ahead of us. You know, when we're talking about foresight and so on. You'd expect that if somebody is to talk about operating in the future, it would be people from New Zealand who are, you know, they're already in the future.
Yeah.
It's tomorrow in New Zealand already. You know what I mean? so why are we fighting up? Why are we fighting up at April 1st here? They're already on April 2nd, you know what I mean? So it was kind of natural fitting, interesting. And they were very, very competent guys, yeah. You know, and the training wasn't training that everybody took to. Because to a lot of the older scientists, I would say, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of the older scientists, especially experts in biotechnology, and so which is the sector that I was working in, but I was working with in terms of foresighting. I remember one guy sat down with me a day, another past supervisor of mine, too, somebody who taught me at university, and he said, "You see all this dreaming up stuff, you know, he couldn't see it." But I mean, you know, it was also a sign of his age, yeah, you know, at the time. You know, it wasn't something he grew up in. He's accustomed to forecasting, and all these things sounded like a lot of wishful thinking to him. But he was a good member of what we call Delphi groups. You know, they're groups that you put together of experts, so that when we came up with a foresighting target for 2025 or 2020, it wasn't just some arbitrary pie out of the sky figure. You know, it's not as if, you know, you're sitting down saying, okay, I'm only making $10 a month now, you know, but by 2025 I'll be making $60,000 a month, right? So it wasn't an unrealistic kind of jump, but it was a jump based on the kind of expertise you had in the room for the meeting and the type of expertise that you have access to between now and 2025. Because if you couldn't have a foresighting session where you say, in 2024, I'm going to be running a research chemist facility. When you have no background in chemistry or anything, when you look at the realistic study time it takes to be a research chemist, then that's not a realistic thing. But if you're a research chemist who wasn't working in chemistry all the time, and you had those skills, but it's just that you wasn't using it, then it's a different thing when you get together in a foresighting session to say, you know, I'll be able to do X, Y, and Z because there's a realistic link between now and then. Am I being clear?
Yeah, and Steve, what I would say is one of the things that made it easy for me to do that and not realizing what I was doing as I said so, is when you're doing like your skills audit and you're using your SMART objective